I just want to welcome you. My name is Camille Rose Taylor. If you are new here, welcome, welcome. I'm a wife, I'm a mama, I'm a business owner. And for the past decade, I've had the blessing and the opportunity to be a peak performance mindset coach to some of the most incredible entrepreneurs, CEOs, business leaders on the planet. And so I'm grateful to be here today. And we're going to be talking about a concept that I have my own private coaching mastermind group called Leaders Club. And we talked about something this week called Just Do It, but way better. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I want to be mindful because if you are watching this as of the live recording, we are in a time and a place. I live here in the United States, specifically in California. And we've just got a lot going on in the nation, always around the world, but especially here, our news media. We've been highlighting a lot of stories. Unfortunately, there's been assassinations of very active people within certain communities. There has been school shootings. There have been people killed in horrible situations. And it just seems like these stories are showing up on our news feeds and our social media feeds one after another. And so I really wanted to get on this live, not only to give you a practical tool as somebody who wants to transform their life, as somebody who wants to transform their business and their mindset, but also as a word of encouragement. Because I know in what feels like very heavy times like this, it can get overwhelming. It can get discouraging very quickly. And it's dangerous to be in a place of discouragement for too long. Because if many of you know, if you've lived life long enough, you recognize that when you are in these places of discouragement, when things feel heavy, when you feel helpless to change anything, no matter how much you use your voice, or you don't even know what to say half the time if you haven't used your voice, then you feel guilty if you haven't used your voice, like all of the things, all of the stories that you play out in your head, you go into those periods of discouragement for too long, and really you start to do nothing, or you fall back into what I often see leaders, myself, do, to what I call bad habits or negative life patterns that really are not reflective of the truest potential of what lives inside of you. So, my purpose today in this session, and I call them sessions because I'm a coach. So, I want to treat it like you are an athlete, you're a business leader, you're someone who's come into a coaching session. We're training today. And I want to encourage you, and I want to give you something very practical, a new tool in your toolkit, maybe a concept that you've known for a long time, but perhaps I can give you just a 2 millimeter shift that can make all the difference for you. Okay, so if you're willing, stick with me until the end of the video because that way you can get the full workout in with me for your mind, for your body, and for your soul, right? So you don't want to leave in the middle of the workout. That's not how a good training sessions works. So if you are here live, you're welcome to type into the chat. I'll do my best to kind of say hi and whatnot. But if I'm not able to, know that you can always comment on the video here on YouTube anytime, and myself or my team, we will respond to you. So if something in this moment does something that I call a hashtag THH, that means that hit home. If you type in hashtag THH, that means that hit home. Something you said, Camille, me, hits home, then type it in there, whatever that phrase is. So I might say something like, hey, power in the pause. If you feel powerless, we need to pause. Anytime you take a timeout, that is one way we get back our power. So if you're like, oh, I needed to hear that power in the pause, type in the chat hashtag THH power in the pause. So let's jump right into it. Now, I was born in 1985, which means I consider myself the 80s, 90s kid. And in 1988, Nike dropped the famous Just Do It campaign. So you hear this phrase, Nike's Just Do It. And during that time in the 1980s and 90s, maybe even in the early 2000s, a really big part of that campaign is just this whole idea of like, just get out there, just do it. No pain, no gain, right? Let's make it happen. Take action. And it was great. You saw a surge of young people wanting to get into athletics. You saw more people getting out there and working out, taking care of their body and their health. So fitness was no longer this elusive thing. It's like, hey, this is part of my life. So yeah, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to stop making excuses. I'm going to do it. Well, if any of you follow the branding and advertising world, which was my world prior to getting into executive and business coaching, Adweek did a lot of highlights with a new campaign that Nike recently came out with Tyler the Creator. And it's to address the younger generation, the people who were not born in 1985, but y'all who were born in 2015 or 2005. And there seems to be more anxiety. And the idea of, well, just do it, get over yourself, just make it happen, doesn't always sit well with that frame of mind in that generation. And I want y'all to know I am not standing here on a pedestal saying, oh, yeah, the younger generation, they need to toughen up. Absolutely not. Every generation has said that about the next generation, right? If you were born in 1950, your parents who were born in 1920 and 1930 told you you weren't tough enough because they grew up in a different generation, so on and so forth, right? So, they just grew up in a different time. They grew up with digital access to cell phones and iPads immediately. They didn't know a time prior to the internet. They didn't know a time prior to social media. So they have been shaped and molded. Their nervous systems, their brain development looks so much different than the generations previous, which means we communicate differently. How I communicate with a quote unquote boomer versus a Gen X versus a millennial versus a Gen Z versus a Gen Alpha, which I think I have a Gen Alpha in my home now. I think that's his generation. But it's going to just be different. One is no better, one is no worse. And I want to drop that as maybe the first concept today as we look at this just do it, but way better. Is instead of trying to just say, hey, my way is the right way. Your way is the wrong way. This is this and this is that. What if it's just simply different? It's okay sometimes to disagree. It's okay sometimes to say, oh, there's nuance in this. Just because I believe this one thing doesn't mean I have to tick off all of these buckets because everyone says I need to. Or, I've seen it this way for a really long time. Is there a possibility that you could see it differently from here on out? So it's just different. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because that is how some of the most innovative, successful companies, brands, and entrepreneurs have continued to be around, including Nike, because they were willing to look at the Just Do It campaign from 1988 and now in 2025 say, I know this has worked for a really long time, but what if we needed to do something different? This is what we call innovation. The ability to pay attention to the times and see, well, what is relevant now to this group of people and what they're going through. And so if you've had a chance, I will Google it. You could even look it up on YouTube right now after you watch my video, but watch this one to the end. Is all right, the Just Do It Nike campaign, what are they doing differently? And it's a brilliant campaign because, and I don't want to spoil too much of it, but essentially instead of just saying, hey, yeah, just do it, they propose a very cool psychological technique. We use this all the time in coaching, but the idea of, well, what if you don't? What if you just decide not to do it? All right, so why go through all of the pain? Why make all of this effort? Why do the workouts that no one ever sees? Why even try to get on the field? Why get on the microphone? Why even write the book? Why start the business? Why do something so difficult when there's a chance that you'll fail? So, what if you just don't do it? What if you decide, you know what, seems too hard? I'm just going to sit on the sidelines, call it a day. It's too much effort. What if I fail? And this idea is, well, what if you don't fail? What if it does work? What if you go to a whole new level that you never thought was even possible for you? Now, it's fascinating because it wasn't just about, okay, just do it. But, okay, let's say you didn't want to. That proposes the question of, okay, you have the freedom to ask, well, what if I just don't? And often what we find is two things happen because I ask this question a lot with leaders and entrepreneurs. They'll be in between a decision, wondering, well, I really want to do this, but I don't know. I'm kind of losing motivation and drive and focus right now. So what if I just don't do it? I'm like, yeah, you don't have to do anything. There is no should. Anytime you say I should do this, I should do that, There is the joke, well, then you're just shoulding all over yourself, right? Like it's not a should. What you really just need to be asking, is it a must? It's if you say, I should do this, you've already kind of shot yourself in the foot. Like that is not the phrase you want coming out of your mouth. Although, if it does come out of your mouth, it's great because it tells you, oh, no wonder I'm not really moving forward on this. No wonder I'm procrastinating a little bit. No wonder I'm holding back because I'm shoulding. Your brain is not completely convinced. There's either not enough pleasure to move you forward, meaning a goal, an accomplishment, a vision that's so exciting that you're willing to do the work, or there's not enough pain in it that says, well, I got to do something because I hate feeling this way. So the should is probably the worst place to be because it's lukewarm. And number two, it has often this idea that, well, other people out there tell me I'm supposed to, but I'm not convinced that I'm supposed to. And for most of the people that I work with, especially if you're an entrepreneur, there is naturally an inner rebel inside of you. Right? The joke with entrepreneurs is the reason you're a business owner and entrepreneur is because you're so unemployable. You won't listen to other people, so you do things yourself. All right. But anyway, so going back to this is if it's a should and you're not doing it, then we have to get it to a place where it's a must. How do you do that? And that's where this question comes in handy is okay, let's just pretend you decide not to move forward on this. What if you don't? What if you don't pursue this thing that's been on your heart to pursue? Whatever that is for you. For some people, it's business. Some people, it's athletics. Some people, it's a creative project. For others, it's a conversation they've been wanting to have. For others, it's an application to a place. Maybe it's joining a particular community, whatever it is. So I want you to put yourself right now in that place. What is something you've been thinking about that you're like, yeah, I'd love to do this, but, or I probably should, but. So anything that's on your heart and mind right now, think about that. And if you're watching this and doing the work with me, you could put whatever that thing is in the comments below. And that way we've got some accountability. Now I want you to imagine, all right, take it off the plate. What if you don't? That thing that you say you want to do, but you haven't. Let's just pretend you never do it. In the most extreme case scenario, you go your entire life never having done it, never put it out there, never said it, never reached out, never produced that thing. So just imagine you never did it, never came out of you, never got produced. Are you okay with that? How does that sit with you? And I really am pausing and not editing this out for a reason because I want you to sit with it. There is great power in the pause. This topic is for another video, but this is the one thing that AI cannot give you. AI is phenomenal for maybe being a second brain, not a first, by the way. It's a good second brain. It's a good way to get leverage. Perhaps it's a great way to get some quick information and have it do research as an assistant. But the moment of pause here, where you leave enough space and stillness to hear your own thoughts again, to hear what I consider God's thoughts, God's plans for you deep within your heart actually come up to the surface because you got still and quiet long enough to finally hear it. And all I'm giving you is a couple of seconds, so it's not too long. But our temptation nowadays, especially with the technology that is so readily available at our hands to no fault of us or no fault of your own, is that we are tempted to just, let me ask ChatGPT, let me ask Grok, let me ask all these different things. What do they think I should do? And you have to remember, these programs are written to find pattern recognition. They are not written to help you discern what the Spirit of God, what your intuition, what your gut, many people use different phrases. I say the Holy Spirit, the discernment of the Holy Spirit. None of those things are designed for that. They cannot be. That is a very unique personal thing that you have to do. That is your own adventure. That is your competitive edge with anything and anyone, if you feel like you are competing. So going back to the original point, what if you don't? What if you don't pursue this thing at all? If it sits in your system and you go, I'm cool with it, no big deal, great, then it really is not a must for you. Then remove it from consideration for right now, remove it from mental real estate, occupying unnecessary space, because you don't need to think about it. It's not that important right now. And it's okay. Maybe it'll be important later, but hey, stop stressing over it. Go on, do your thing, live your life. One less thing for you to worry about. But if you are the person right now who is sitting there and you said, oh, I hate that feeling, that I never did it, that I never even tried, that I never even went out and just made it happen. If that does not feel good in your spirit, to just consider that, what if you don't? What if you just never do it? If something inside of you burns a little bit, it's like, I'm supposed to be doing this. I need to be doing this. I must be doing this. That's the thing you want to hold on to. So if you're in that camp, then good news is for you, I have a fun little tool that I want to give you today. But also, as I mentioned, this word of encouragement, the reason that it's inside of you. And notice, I'm not telling you what it is. You know what it is. Unlike what a lot of the quote unquote influencers and gurus might say out there, there is no formula for how it needs to get done. There's great models, inspiration, strategic fundamentals of business and marketing and branding that you can get information on, but your specific call, what you are meant to do specifically, is unique to you. And only you, in that pause and in that stillness, in that time with God, in that time of prayer, in that time of reflection, literally your hand to the paper. And the science has proven this. For those of you who are like, yo, she's talking a little bit about God and faith, but I'm more scientific if you think those things can't coexist. Let me speak to my science people then. The science has proven that when you put pen to paper, not just typing notes, but I mean spending time in pen to paper reflection, there are more neural connections and neural activity in your brain that keeps your brain even healthier, even more creative, and builds your critical thinking skills when you do pen to paper. I know I just held up a digital notebook, but I have a Remarkable, so I'm not sponsored by them in any way. But hey, Remarkable, if you catch this and you want to sponsor me, I'm all about it. But it's the closest thing I could get to paper right now because I'm at my desk. But when you are spending time in the pause and the reflection, and I know it's not as easy nowadays, and that's why, as your coach today, thank you for allowing me to be your coach. I am encourage you 5 minutes of pause. If you can't take 5 minutes because you're that busy, 30 seconds of pause, pen to paper, grab a napkin wherever you're at, write something down right now. In fact, you could write down this sentence: I feel called to blank. Or God is calling me to blank. Take 30 seconds right now and just write this down. Now, if you are watching the recording, you can pause the video if you need a little bit more time. But that, whatever you wrote down right now, this is really, really important. Take a look at it. And here's the next question I want you to ask yourself. Whatever you saw on that paper, I feel called to blank. God is calling me to blank. Ask this question. Whatever I just wrote down, does that sound like the voice of fear? Or does it sound like the voice of love? Does it sound like the voice of fear? Or does it sound like the voice of love? Let me give you a tangible example of how this played out this week on a coaching call. I have this client that I've worked with for 7 or 8 years now. He's incredible. Entrepreneur, man of faith, husband, father, does all the things, super disciplined, super dedicated, very committed to his work. But just like any other human being, he has his bad days and his good days, his challenging days and his victorious days. And we just happened to be on a week in which he just felt really unmotivated. And caveat here, if anyone else saw him on the outside and heard that he was in an unmotivated state, they wouldn't believe me, because he is known for being Mr. Motivated, Mr. Disciplined, Mr. Get Stuff Done, Mr. Whatever, fill in the blank there. And he really also is that guy. But like I said, he's human too. And what we don't often get to see, because the Instagram reels, the TikTok reels, right, the edited YouTube videos show us only the highlights, only the edited, filtered versions of ourselves. But we were just having a real conversation. He said, Camille, I am having a tough time these past couple of weeks. I just don't want to do this with my business. I just don't want to do my workouts. I don't want to do this. And I was like, okay, so let's talk about it. And so as we were digging and digging and digging, one of the things I always pay attention to with folks when I'm coaching them are the words that they use. You're welcome to write this down if this is helpful too. The words that I use are reflective of the state of my heart. The words that I use are reflective of the state of my heart. And so he's saying a lot of different things. And there were three particular words that I picked up on when I said, okay, well, what's going on here? What is it that you feel about this? And he's like, I don't know. I just feel like I should be more aggressive because I'm just feeling so out of control right now with this and this. And I know I need to do it, but blah, 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 blah. Right. I said, okay. So I'm writing this down. And then I paused and I stopped. And I said, okay, let me just give you some feedback. There's a couple of words that you've been using over and over repeatedly. And I'm going to tell them to you, and I want you to tell me. And he's a man of faith, so we could kind of have this deeper conversation. And I said, you tell me, is this the voice of the enemy or is this the voice of God? And then he was like, oh, what are the words that I'm saying? And I said, okay, then this is why I wanted to reflect it back to you. You said should, aggressive, control, multiple times. Should, aggressive, control. By the way, the reason I was pointing this out to him is that it's not his normal language. Remember how I said I've been working with him for almost 7 years now? It's kind of like knowing a friend for a decade. You know how they speak, especially when they're in their full self, right? When they're just being them, it's like, oh, that seems out of character. This was an out of character conversation for him. So I asked him, I said, you tell me, what does that feel like to you? And he goes, oh, that's the voice of the enemy for sure. I said, all right. So we wrote it down and we made a T chart. I put the enemy, and on the right side, I put God. I said, so here's my encouragement to you. Let's walk through this exercise together. And by the way, you're welcome to do this exercise if it helps you as well. I said, I want you to just pretend. Now, we're going to step away from all of the stresses, the things that have been demotivating you the past couple of weeks, and we're going to sit down and you're going to pretend that you're sitting right in front of God. And he goes, oh, okay. I said, you can imagine what God looks like. It's up to you. But I want you to pretend he's a good, good father. Because my client's also a father and he has sons and daughters, multiple kids. I said, and he's a good father. And he's speaking to you right now in this season. What are the words that you're hearing from him about your situation? And there was a bit of silence on the phone because he was really processing and he was really thinking. And I'm going to give you some of the words. So he said, I hear the word discipline. And he goes, but I don't hear it like in a mean way. Like the tone right now is direct, loving, and encouraging. And he's just reminding me that I have discipline. It's important for me to be disciplined and I'm good at it. And I said, okay, let's write that down. So we put discipline. And then I also put in parentheses, loving, encouraging, direct, because that was the tone. The tone of the voice is very important. However you hear it, feel it, see it, that's how you're going to know, oh, this is the voice of God. This is the voice of love, right? Versus what we call the voice of the enemy or fear. Fear, by the way, an enemy is always going to sound like guilt, shame, anxiety, pressure. The voice of love is not going to feel that way. So we continued, and the other word that came up was confidence. And I was like, okay, discipline and confidence. What is God saying to you about confidence? And he goes, to have confidence in my abilities, the abilities he's given me, but to remind myself, like, you already know how to do the work. What are you holding back on? Like, have confidence in what I gave you, the talents, the gifts, the time, the resources, the experiences, everything that I've given you. Have confidence in that. And so we wrote that down. Confidence. I'm looking to my left, by the way, because I can actually see the poster board. So in my abilities, he said confidence to do the work. And he said this, and I love this. He said, I can hear him saying, have confidence that the results will come and that you're not in charge of it. Have confidence that the results will come. You're not in charge of it, but the results can't come if you don't get on the court. The results can't come if you don't play on the field. The results can't come if you don't show up to the meeting. The results can't come if you don't pick up the phone and do the work. I want to work alongside you, is what he kept hearing kind of God say to him. He's like, but you got to do your part, my son. I can't do it for you. And like I could hear, the sort of the emotion in his voice. And certainly there was a change and shift in his heart and his tone. And I could feel it even as a coach. Like it's as if his heart went from like hard and shriveled and really demotivated and really discouraged to softening and opening and building energy and building power and building light once again. Right? Think of it as like you're tilling the soil. You know how if you have dry soil and you haven't watered it for a while, it's really hard for anything to grow through it. So what do we have to do? You don't just water it. You kind of have to break it up a little bit, right? We're going to have to till that thing. And that's what I was doing with him, like challenging him with different questions, different perspectives, different exercises, pausing long enough to reflect. Because again, yes, you could go to AI and be like, I'm feeling demotivated. What should I do today? And they will give you an aggregated calculation of what everyone on the internet has posted in a blog at some point about overcoming demotivation. So you will get a very basic headliner clickbaity answer. And it's not that it's wrong. It could be actually very helpful. It's just that it's not custom. It's not bespoke to you. It doesn't take into account your childhood, your culture, your upbringing, your zip code, the pain of that breakup, the conversation you had last night with your wife, the conversation you're about to have with one of your employees. It doesn't take into account all of those things. And that's why it's so important for you to get still. All right. Anyway, going back to it, right? I'll give you the last two things that he heard. And so he also said, I keep hearing, be content, my son, but not complacent. He found himself, and this is what my client said recently in a couple of weeks, just really comparing his results a lot, comparing his success a lot to people on social media, whatever he was seeing. And he knows consciously, he knows that's not the right thing to do. You don't do that. But remember, what your eyes and your ears consume start to change the health of your psychology and your soul, just as much as the food you consume changes the biochemistry and the health of your body. So when we consume a lot of online content, social media, etc., you can expect that formula of highlight reels, highly edited, really beautiful, really entertaining, the brain starts to confuse it and think, oh, that's reality, because it doesn't know. It's just like, well, that's what, oh, cool, you can do a house renovation in 90 seconds. Nice. How come you're not doing that? What? Right? Obviously, you just watched somebody who filmed something for like 10 days, spent $1,500 on an editor, spent another X amount for boosting that post, and you're watching it for 90 seconds, and your brain goes, yeah, it takes 90 seconds to do that really beautiful thing. How come you're not doing it? That's what we want to be careful of with the overconsumption of media. Media is in itself not bad, but how we consume it, what we consume can be. So that's what was starting to change with him, is he's comparing when he doesn't normally compare, because that's what the brain does. So I said, so what does that mean to be content but not complacent? What is complacent to you? And he goes, complacent is like just being okay with mediocre, being okay with average. And he's like, I'm sure that's fine for some people, but I'm not okay with that. But sometimes if I feel like, oh, business is all right, things are good, it's not that bad, I start to get lazy, is what he calls it. I said, all right, let's get even more granular. Let's look up together the definition of complacency. And so we did. And one of the main definitions of complacency is full self-sufficiency and satisfaction. That you're so satisfied in yourself, there's a smugness about it. Like, yeah, I'm good. I don't have to prove anything. I don't need to do anything. I'm fine. But it's not a wholesome self-satisfaction. But also, there's a limitation to it. Remember how I said he's a man of faith? Complacency is all about the self, meaning it is a self-satisfaction that says, I did it all. I figured it all out. I put breath in my lungs this morning and I raised the sun up and I'm going to push the sun down. That is the smugness of the self satisfaction. There is no recognition of an outside force that divinely orders, contributes to, provides all things. And that was already in direct conflict to what he truly believes in his heart. He goes, that makes sense. I was starting to just think it's all on me, which also, and here's the kicker, and I want you to stick around for this one for anybody who needs to hear it. When something didn't go the way that he was hoping, he automatically considered it a failure. Let's say there was this business idea he had, the first 3 attempts at it didn't go exactly the way that he wanted. It doesn't mean that he's going to give up on it, but it just didn't go the way that he wanted, so he felt a little deflated. Another situation didn't exactly pan out the way that he hoped, felt a little deflated. You get enough losses, perceived losses, by the way, perceived failures. And if you're focused on yourself, you think, I am the failure. I caused it to fail. I suck, right? Eventually, it just becomes an identity. So I said, so what is this telling you? What is God saying to you? And he goes, to be content means trusting what he has right in front of me and knowing that, hey, he is doing it for a reason. I was like, oh, interesting. Well, what do you think that reason is? And he goes, well, if I'm being completely honest, sometimes I still worry about what other people think about me. Even though there's a part of me that really doesn't care what other people think about me in certain areas of my life, if I'm being fully transparent, there are some things that I do care about what other people think about me. And a lot of that comes from my upbringing. Then he told me a little bit about his childhood and his past, things that I kind of knew, but more stories that came to surface. And I was like, all right, so there we go. That in and of itself tells you, oh, my fear of what they might think of me is attached to your survival mechanism from when you were a little boy because you needed to be accepted to be in a friend group, right? Again, this is the taking everything into account. You yourself have also your own story. You have your own nervous system triggers. You have your own fears. You have your own things that bother you, stress you, what you call trigger you, right? That is unique to you. It's not necessarily because you're weaker or stronger or whatever than somebody else. You just have a different story. Therefore, you have different capacity, different strengths, different limitations. And it's a great thing when you recognize what your limitations are, not as identity, but as something that I get to work on. So, what he was saying is, oh, I think God is allowing some of these challenges and difficulties in my life. They're not end game things, but some of them so that I build the muscle of not caring in a good way what other people think of me, but rather just working directly for what he's called me to do. He came up with that. I didn't. I was just listening, right? But sometimes when you get wise counsel by your side to ask you just the right questions, when you pause long enough to just hear that still small voice inside of you, when you allow love to speak to you instead of the loud voice of fear, remember, love's often going to be kind of quiet. It's not going to be in the earthquake and the lightning and the firestorms. It might sometimes be in the silence. Do you get quiet long enough to hear it? So the last thing he said, what else is God saying to you? If anything, he said, trust God. I was like, all right, cool. Meaning trust him with the results. Now let's look at our list. I told him, imagine if the words coming out of your mouth instead of should, control, aggressive, was instead, I am disciplined. I am confident in the abilities that God's given me. I am very content with all that I have, yet I am not complacent in my own self. I'm excited for what he's doing, and I'm going to trust him fully with the results. Can you hear the difference in the voice? And he himself started laughing. He's like, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I said, all right, now here is the big question. And by the way, this is the big question for you too. So if you're still watching the video, congratulations, you're still in the workout with me. Like you haven't given up on the workout. Consider these sessions a workout for the brain, a workout for the soul, right? We're building muscles. We're building capacity to lead from love, if you will, for lack of a better term. But the question I asked him then, I said, so then what What is he calling you to do from this place? And he goes, to just do it. And I said, do what? And he laughed. He goes, well, to just do the thing I know how to do. I love teaching. I love coaching. I love working with people. Actually really do love working out, but I think I had so many perceived failures for so long that I got lazy, but really wasn't lazy. I just didn't want to try anymore because if I don't try, then I can't fail. Ooh, that was for somebody. Because I heard that and I was like, yo, did you hear yourself? He goes, yeah, I just stopped trying because I perceived that I kept failing. So it's just safer that if I don't try, I don't fail. And I asked him, I said, is that really who you are? He goes, absolutely not. I was like, I didn't think so. Because the other side you don't know about this client is he is a risk taker. This guy is super adventurous. Like when he wants something, he goes after it. Like there is that side to him too, right? So I said, so what is he calling you to do? He goes, to just do it for, and then he inserted his purpose. So that's the tool I want you to take today. And I did this with my group, and I'm going to give you the exact question. But yes, Nike is right. It has been right for a while. You just need to do it. You need to face the thing that you have been called to do. The voice of fear is not the one we want to listen to, although I know it's very loud and I know sometimes it can be very scary. But there is also a voice of love. And if you've never tapped into that voice, know that one, you're going to need to pause long enough to actually hear it. But number two, if you feel like you can't even access it, get around somebody, find somebody, a friend, a community member, or even an influencer that when you hear their content, when you hear their voice, something inside of your heart and your spirit just perks up and you're like, that sounds like the voice of love. That sounds like the voice of God, or at least it's reminiscent of what I believe the sound of God's voice, God's word, God's character would be like. Because being around those mentors, being around those voices, consuming that sort of content will encourage your spirit. In my coaching frame, I call it you have gainers in your life and you have drainers. Some people, y'all know it, you get around them, they will drain you. You just feel it. You sometimes you can't even describe it, but it's just draining to be around them. It's like, oh my gosh, what happened to you today? Whatever it was, it sucked the life out of me too. Those are drainers. And then there's also people I call gainers. With every entrepreneur, with every leader I work with, I make sure they are intentional about finding gainers because it's not always easy. And what are gainers? People who, when you're around them, you gain energy, you gain insight, you gain wisdom, you gain something, like you feel filled up by them. Why is this so important, especially for high achievers? Because most of you who are very driven and ambitious, you're used to giving stuff away. You help people, you go out there, you make things happen, you're always pouring out. One thing high achievers are not always great at is receiving, allowing somebody to just pour back into them. And sometimes maybe it's hard for them to find. So my encouragement to you is find more gainers. And how do you know they're a gainer? Like I said, it's as simple as I get around this person, man, I feel better. I feel inspired. I feel energetic. I love this. Whoever those people are, you write their names down. I want you to put your own success squad, top 5. This is my starting 5. Basketball is my first sport. So you're going to hear me use that as an analogy a lot. But put down your starting 5. These are my success squad members. When I'm around them, life just is so much better. I'm filled. I'm inspired. I'm energized. I'm motivated. That's what you want. And more importantly, you need consistent, scheduled time with them. And what I mean by consistent scheduled time, you don't have to be with them every day. You don't even have to be with them every week. But as long as something is on your calendar once a month minimum, if you can only do once a quarter, fine. But that's usually not enough for people. But at least once a month on the calendar, I'm texting this person, I'm calling them, I'm having a Zoom meeting, I'm listening to something that they put out, whatever it is, right? But having a gainer in your life. And in his case, obviously, whether that's me, a mentor, a trainer, somebody, but we were able to celebrate the process of discerning what he needed to do next. So with my crew this week, my Leaders Club members, right? The entrepreneurs that I coach. I posed the same tool to them. I said, all right, what is the thing you've been holding back on that you know you are meant to do? God's calling you to do. My hair is bothering me today. I should have just put it up. Anyway, whatever it is that you feel God's calling you to do, what is that thing that you have been pushing back on? Yeah, there's a fear of failure there. There's a fear of success there. That, oh my gosh, what if this succeeds? What am I going to do with it? That very much exists too. So write that down. And they did. So there's that one thing. I said, great. The last 90 days of this year, because as of this recording, that's about where we're at. We're going to hyper focus. You're going to just do it. You're going to feel like you're at the front of the line of a roller coaster ride that you don't want to get on. And we're going to trust it's going to be fun. It's going to be safe. And I need you to know I am coming from the place of I am someone who does not like roller coasters. So I get it. I understand it very much. So we're, woof, this is not something I want to do. But how do we make this way better? Because I can't just put you there and say, just do it, figure it out, face your fear, toughen up, suck it up. That's maybe one aspect. But the one that makes this powerful and sustaining is this. And here's my question for you. What is your mission? What is your mission in life? Some people might phrase this as your purpose, but I want you to think of it as a mission. If you're on a mission, what do you feel like you really are called to do? And by the way, when you do this exercise with me, and I want you to do it right now, again, we're in mindset gym. So you're in the gym with me. What just came up in your gut and in your heart? Don't overthink it. If I were to just be like, what's your mission? What are you meant to do? And you're like, man, I'm meant to take care of my family. I'm meant to help these people. I'm meant to draw. I'm meant to sing. I'm meant to whatever just immediately almost came up. Write that down. That might not be it, but it's a breadcrumb clue into what it is. But here's where people often get caught up. I myself have done this in the past. You get that question, you're like, my mission, oh my gosh, I don't know. What am I supposed to say? Like, oh, my purpose. Oh, ChatGPT, take all of the things you know about me and tell me what my purpose is. Please don't do that. By the way, I know, again, it can be helpful, but this is genuinely an exercise for you. If you were to do that right now, that's like going to the actual gym with a trainer and saying, I'm not really great at that particular exercise, so I'm gonna have this person over here do it. It's like, I'm training your muscles right now. I'm not training that person's muscles. I'm not training ChatGPT to have more information on you. You, just you and me right now. What's your mission? And there's no pressure to have a beautiful, eloquent, long answer. You might just have one word that you say, and it's like, that's what I'm meant to do in this season of my life. So let me give you, if you haven't already given yourself permission to say that, maybe it's not a forever thing. Maybe it's just right now, this is the mission. For some of you, it is the long thing. It's like, nope, for life, this is what I'm meant to do. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what came up in our group. When I asked people this and I said, just tell me, what's your mission? They said, to serve others, to be a decent human being, to bring my 5 and 2 to whatever is right in front of me that day, to encourage people, to lead from love, to create community, to take care of my kids. What's your mission? Then, whatever comes up for you, like I said, just the top of your heart, I don't want you to overthink it here because your mission is not going to come from here. It's going to come from here. We will be able to then formulate words up here, or you can write it down if you're more of a writer. But then here is your new sentence. Just do it for blank. For whom are you doing it? For what are you doing it? That purpose, and this is how we make this even better, is when you are very clear on what is mission critical for you. The call of God on your life, the call in your heart, the call in your gut. I had one client yesterday tell me they didn't know how to answer that question when I first asked it, and they sat on it for 2 weeks before we talked again. They gave me an answer at first, and it was a good answer. I said, I think that is part of your mission. And she was like, Oh, that's not the full thing? I said, you told me. And she goes, you're right. There's something else. There is something else. I said, okay. So there's something else. 2 weeks later, we had another conversation. She goes, Camille, I got it. I said, really? You got what? Because I didn't even know what she was talking about. She's like, the purpose, the mission. I figured it out. I said, okay, what is it? And she goes, I love convincing people that their dreams can become reality. Oh, and it hit me. I was like, girl, yes. That is so you through and through. Because again, this is another client of mine that I've had for years. And that very much is her personality. She never knew how to articulate that. Because if you looked at what she actually does with her career, it doesn't seem like that's the front facing thing. But it very much is her mission. So I said, so now imagine that thing that you are hesitant to do, afraid to do, and we add this phrase, just do it. At first, your brain goes, okay, yep, I know. I said, but if I add this piece, just do it because I love convincing people that their dreams can become a reality. And then when I say just do it for whom, because that was another question, I said, I want you to see the face of the person you want to help. And she was able to envision actually a family member who fit the profile really well. I said, now just do it for them. Just do it for, and imagine your kid's face. Just do it for that person that you helped break out of addiction or a bad relationship, or she finally believes in herself because of something that you said, or he finally reconciled with his wife and his kids because of something that you did, or because you decided to make the phone call. So when I give you guys this tool of just do it and way better, what I'm basically saying is complete the sentence. Just do it. That's a sentence for you. For blank. For this person. For this mission. For this purpose. So that's my mini homework to you. And here's the bigger encouragement or call. By the way, if you're on Instagram Live right now, sorry for the weird angle, but you're the behind the scenes. But we are in a really unique time and place in society in which we need more leaders like you, leaders of love, to rise up and no longer downplay what you are called to do. Yes, there are a lot of logistics. Yes, there can be a lot of fear around your story. But here is the encouragement. Do not do this alone. Get a leverage partner. Get a gainer in your life. Get a friend, a mentor, a community, something that is going to give you not just the courage, but the community and the consistency to keep going when it's difficult. Because that's the reality about this. Some of you are going to hear this message today and you're going to be like, that's it. It was my sign. I'm meant to do this thing. Let's go. I've been thinking about it. I've been praying about it. Camille said, just do it. I'm all in. I know my purpose. I know my mission. I'm going to do it. And so you start it. And that's great. I want you to do that. And then something's going to happen a week later, a month later, a year later, when you're still doing it, and it's going to freak you out and cause you to want to stop doing it. And you'll be like, oh, maybe I wasn't supposed to do this. Failure looks inevitable. I'm having a hard time. And if you think, remember when my client talked about that complacency is self-sufficiency. If you think this is all on you to lift, to do, to carry by yourself all the time, you are going to be in a very vulnerable position to actually give up and quit. So my encouragement is no, number one, you don't do this alone. You don't do this alone. You need to find somebody, but you do need to reach out because nobody knows. A closed mouth don't get fed, right? Reach out for the help, the support you need. Find that person. If you don't have a community, put a comment below, DM me, email me. I'll connect you to the right people. If I know the right people or if my community is the right one for you, great. But what I want you to know is do not do this alone. There is strength in numbers. And number two, there is something inside of you. And if it's a force for good, if it's a force for love, if you can tell whatever this mission is that when you read it, you're like, yeah, that's the voice of love 100%. There's always going to be an enemy. stopping you from doing it. And that's why I want to encourage you all the more you need to do it. You need to step out. It is going to require some bravery and courage on your part, and I will continue to be praying for you about that. But just know it's time for you. No more holding back. Just do it. But know for whom and for what.